What's up, guys? Welcome to the Tatted Addicts podcast. I'm your host, Noise. With me today is my friend Naomi. Today's subject might be a little touchy. If you have any triggers around sexual assault or anything like that, I encourage you to not watch this episode. With that being said, let's get into it. Naomi is actually a friend of mine. I've known her for a few years now. I met her at a previous tattoo shop I worked at. She worked at a store within the mall that we were in. And, you know, we kind of had a cool friendship since then. So, yeah. What's up, Naomi? How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's cool to see you over here.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. Good to see you sober and healthy.
Yeah, so. I love it. I couldn't be more happy. I know there were a couple years where we kind of lost touch. So we haven't seen each other really in a couple years.
Yeah.
You look great as well.
Thank you.
You had been speaking to me about your sobriety and how your recovery is going. So I just want to kind of jump into that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, start with, you know, early on, maybe how addiction has, you know, started off in your life and how you know, managed to live through it, thank God, and how recovery is now more of your, you know, your focus.
Yeah. So I kind of got into drug addiction at a pretty young age. I think the first time I ever used anything, I was like 11 or 12 years old, taking pills out of my parents' medicine cabinet. During that time in my life, I was dealing with a lot of mental health struggles that weren't very obvious. I kind of kept them more to myself. In my early childhood, I did experience sexual assault, which I think did trigger a lot of that pain that I felt, what led me into, you know, seeking out those pills and those drugs. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's never a good thing. I mean, you know, it's bad enough to have an addiction. It's even worse to have sexual assault taking place in your life, especially at a young age. But having both of them, you know, combined together and still being able to sit where you are today and be able to help others is huge. So let's talk about, you know, your childhood and you know, leading up into your early adulthood and kind of how things work, you know, maybe your living situation and, you know, maybe some people that were involved with your life helping you make a difference and others that, you know, you clung to for just having someone there but probably weren't the best influence in your life.
Oh yeah. So like I said, at a young age, I started kind of using pills even before I ever like smoked weed or anything like that. So going into my early high school years, that's when weed and all those other things started getting introduced. I think the first time I ever did cocaine, I was about 15 or 16 years old and definitely wasn't hanging out with the right people. I was doing a lot of Xanax at the time as well. Even I used to hang out with one of my friends and we would go steal things from the mall and sell them to get drugs or steal alcohol bottles from the store, and definitely I think just threw myself down a really dark path. And I guess kind of what kind of put me there is, you know, I love my father and he's sober now, but my dad was an alcoholic when I was growing up, and due to what happened to me as a kid and him being a cop, he became really overprotective of me, and I didn't really understand why. Which created a lot of resentment and really made me push back on everything, you know, the don't do drugs type thing. And
the rebellion.
I became a pretty rebellious child. And I mean, you met me when I was working at Zoomies in the mall. And I would say my manager there, she was one of like the few adults in my life at the time that really saw me for who I am and saw that I had a lot of potential and was a big part of me, like, quitting pills. I think that's when I completely stopped doing pills at that time. So it's been, I don't even know how many years, but haven't been doing those, which is good. So yeah, she was a really big role model for me and I looked up to her a lot. I still do. Still keep in contact. I'm about to be in her wedding.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really
so
cool.
I'm very excited for that. And then yeah, so I think too, and then going into college, my parents moved out of state. And I was kind of on my own for the first time and figuring it out and didn't really have a lot of support and I broke my back too. So early in college, I broke my back, my pelvis, my hand had internal bleeding. I had to drop out of school.
What happened?
I was in a car accident.
Okay.
I was T-boned, and yeah, I dropped out of school and pretty much living on campus.
Sure.
All I wanted to do was really drink. I just drank and work.
What else
and
is there?
Yeah, went to parties all the time. Was doing a lot of cocaine, and I got into a relationship with an older man who we ended up having some DV situations. And after that first time, that was the first time I ended up having a curiousness or fascination in sobriety. So that was the first start of me wanting to get sober. I was sober for about 2 years at that point, and then, you know, the journey keeps going. Life challenges you, and I relapsed, moving to Detroit, and came back here and had a seizure from drinking, and took my a couple more than I should have on my antidepressants, and had a seizure, and that was the start of me going to AA.
It's a horrible combination.
Yeah, it definitely is. So never will do that again, I'll tell you that. But
what do you think was your lowest point, your rock bottom, if you had to sit and think about it?
Man, I don't know. I think every time you think there's a rock bottom, there's a new rock bottom.
Absolutely.
I could probably name 50 different rock bottoms. I definitely think, the seizure was a pretty low point in my life. I mean, pushed me to go to AA.
Okay.
So I would probably say that was one of the most challenging.
Now, you said that was the next day after drinking a lot. Can you kind of walk me through the night before?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really remember most of it.
Fair
but
enough.
I know, unfortunately, when I moved back here, I got back in contact with the man that I had the DV experience with. And we got in an argument, and I was drinking for a couple days nonstop probably. It was pool partying and everything. So to me, I was out having fun, but I had a lot of pain and inside of me that I wasn't able to cope with. So, I'd always take it a little further than other people. And then, I don't know, I went home and was drinking, and I don't really remember taking the medication. Someone else actually had to tell me about it. And next day I woke up hungover as hell and put on my clothes to go to work, and thank God I didn't drive, and I had my friend drive me because I wasn't feeling well, and had a seizure in their car.
That's scary. That's
yeah.
Probably, especially at a young age, that's
Yeah, no, 100%. So, and I've OD'd before in the past too, so it's I OD'd at a young age, and when I was about 13, which it was on purpose, but I think I took about 40 different pills. 10 of them were Tylenol, but I was taking Valium and Vicodin and whatever I could get my hands on. So kind of reminded me of that. And even sometimes when maybe I don't want to live, I do. And I think I've been building, as much as I'm still going through a lot of things currently, I'm putting myself one day at a time where I want to be.
That's all you can do, right? We can only focus on now. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow might not come.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully it does, but until then, focus on what's in front of us, for sure. Now, you're talking about your assault, and I understand if you want to get too deep into it. What was the person, someone in your life, a family member or a friend?
Yeah, so my first assault was a family member who was also a child as well. So not only did I kind of follow the path of addiction, he did as well. He was also being assaulted, and I'm not going to go too much into his life, but he also experienced a lot of addiction issues after. And, experiencing assault puts you in a really dark spot. Very recently, I can't say too much about it for legal reasons, but I relapsed on a night and experienced an assault. And, I definitely didn't want to continue down that path, but was in such a dark spot and was spiraling that I felt like if I didn't keep living through my addiction, nobody would understand the pain I was feeling.
Right.
I had to show it on the outside for anybody to believe me, which is not the case at all. And I'm definitely learning that each day, and like I said, one day at a time. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely think addiction and assault play hand in hand. Even statistically, women who experience assault are, I think what I read was 2 out of 3 of them will experience some form of addiction, whether it's alcoholism or drugs. So, yeah, definitely they work in with each other.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And at that age, you don't know any better. And if your parents are overbearing with what they deem as support, but it's really just things that we're not trying to hear at the time, or that will actually sometimes push us farther into addiction, it really doesn't help as much.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your parents, they're not excited about that either, right?
No, they're not. And they've learned a lot. I was their first kid. They had me at
Right.
21.
Mm-hmm.
So they just did what they thought was right. And we've talked about it a lot too. So
That's good that you're
They're-
able to,
yeah,
to
we're-
come
we
back
have a
around and talk about it.
very good relationship now. So
Awesome.
definitely I wouldn't even probably be thinking about sobriety if it weren't for them and their support. So
That's awesome. So it sounds like, obviously, like most of us, you finally came to a decision and actively chose to find recovery.
yeah, it definitely was a really hard decision. I think when you start using drugs that early at that age, and I've built so many of like friendships or relationships off of drug use that it really became a part of who I thought I was. And I do have borderline personality disorder as well, so I think that also plays a part in it. Of I kind of made drugs my identity, and a lot of people would always be like, oh, well, she's an addict. So I always felt like, well, you see me like this, so I might as well be this. And I think going into my young adult life too, it's so accepted. And I can tell people 100 times, like, yeah, I'm an addict, blah, blah, blah. They will still offer it to you.
Yep.
They will still bring it around you. It's so normalized.
It's messed up, honestly.
No, it's especially social media these days. Like, trust me, I love social media, but there's so much normalization on there, and it can be really triggering, I think, in all different ways of mental health and addiction. Yeah, it can be a very fine line sometimes of looking up recovery things and seeing, normalization things as well. So
Absolutely. What was I just gonna say? Oh yeah. Speaking on all the friends that you made while you were addicted and while you were using drugs, I think a lot of times we use that. We don't realize it, but really it's just a safe space for us. They're not our friends in most cases. Some of them hold on, and I still have friends that I was actively using with. They're not as close knit as we were, when we had a lot more in common. But you start to lose a lot of that relatability with those people.
Yeah.
And some of them get offended, and others understand and just stay quiet. So tell me a little bit about like how that fits to what you're.
Yeah,
what you're
I
going
would
through.
say like you go to a meeting a lot of times. They're always going to tell you people, places, things, and I think like that's something, especially at my age, I've struggled with the most, is changing my people, places, things, because you hold that attachment onto people, and or like the bar is fun,
Yep.
and like I like playing pool. I love going to the bar and playing pool, but I definitely think I've lost a lot of friends through changes in my life, whether when I was an addict and they changed, I lost them, or they didn't want to be my friend because of addiction, or even to like me losing friends now, trying to change, or me even having to make that decision myself of I can't be around these people. And it can be really sad. Like I have a lot of friends that I don't want to see them like that, but I can't really do anything. Like you need to come to it on your own.
Yep.
I 100% believe, like I 100% agree and believe in that. Of like if you don't want it, you're not going to pursue it.
Exactly.
And healing isn't linear too. It's one thing. I work in mental health now, and that's something I have to tell myself every day is it's not linear. You're gonna have those setbacks, and as long as you keep going back to I want to heal, I think that's what matters. So
I agree. A lot of it too. I mean, the people, place, and thing, that's a huge part of it. But also, I think when we change our perspective from, you keep saying you're losing friends. If we can look at it more as we're just outgrowing stages of our lives. So we don't lose necessarily the people. We might have lost the bond, but the people are still there. They're still alive. Most of them.
yeah.
So a lot of that changing your mindset too helps definitely a lot with those situations.
No,
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think like your mindset can be your own weakness. 100%. And having borderline personality disorder, one thing I have to do a lot is focus on my mindset and change my perspective on things so I don't spiral or get caught up in like what I think things should be like sometimes. And I even too like in my path of recovery, I've made a lot of friends. A lot of them, like with my most recent assault, a lot of them were the only people who reached out to me when I was shutting in and would check in on me. And
Right.
I think that's very important, you know, like that definitely says something. So
Absolutely. Um, Now, I know you were talking about earlier in your childhood that you were addicted to pills and actively using pills. It sounds like pills was kind of like your drug of choice, your escape. Kind of tell me how that works now. Having BPD, are you prescribed medicine for the BPD?
yeah, I am. I will say there's always a part of me that doesn't want to take medication. There's always that like part of my brain that's like, no. Like, I recently got prescribed a medication for alcoholism, and I still have it sitting in my car, and haven't fully started taking that yet. But yeah, no, I also too. Like after my assault, I was having really bad panic attacks and anxiety, and you know, a lot of times they want to give you Xanax and things like that.
Right.
And I was very open with my doctor. Luckily, like I felt comfortable doing that, and I was like absolutely nothing like this. So I do take a really low dose of hydroxyzine.
Okay.
I don't really take it super often. Normally, it makes me really sleepy, so that kind of helps with my go life. I can't
Right.
really be doing that all the time. So
And also, I mean, if it makes you really sleepy, it kind of, has a lot of the similarities to the Xanax and the Valium and those things that
Yeah.
you were already like addicted to. So being able now, to understand that I need this as medication, not to escape from what's hurting me or what's triggering me.
and I think it can be more of like sometimes even like downers or things like that feel triggering to me.
Right.
Like after like ODing and having seizures and things like that, it just reminds me of a really dark time in my life. So even like marijuana. I don't really smoke marijuana anymore. It's sometimes can be really triggering for me, especially like indica strains when I get that really like sedative, sleepy like
Yep.
feeling. It's
Couch lock.
yeah, it's very like it just reminds me of that feeling, and it's not a feeling I really want to feel again because like the time in my life when I was using those kind of substances specifically was very, very dark and very depressing. And I can go into a lot about that, but we would run out of time for sure. But yeah, it's not really something I feel like I want to relive. So
Understandable.
I think that helps a little bit is kind of the trauma associated with it. So
Now, when you're sitting here and talking about these things, or when you're actively aware of, I take this and I know weed's gonna trigger me, do you give yourself grace for being able to stop for a second and smell the roses before you make a decision that can ultimately
Yeah.
bring you back into?
yeah, no, 100%. And I think too, like I said, I work in mental health now. One thing that helps me a lot is that job in mental health. I always try, we talked about perspective too, using like, I used to always say like, oh, I'm an addict, this is who I am. But now I try to think these experiences I have, they don't define me, and I can use these to help other people.
Right.
So that's my job, I think 100% has saved my life and has helped me be more aware of it too. And just having that perspective change of it's not who I am. I'm not doomed. I can
Right.
actually change my life and help other people. So.
I mean, think about it. If we had perfect lives and had nothing to talk about, what would we be doing here right now? What would you be
More
doing trying to
people.
help other people that are going
Yeah.
through things that you've never lived through? They talk about in AA how, they had thought about bringing in like people that went to college and were certified, to be alcoholism counselors or recovery counselors, but these people have never had a drink in their life and never been addicted to each other. So how would they be able to help the ones that are in here and giving their stories without casting judgment or making the people that are there for the help feel like they're lesser than the person, where when the person leading it has lived through everything we have and is just at a different stage in their recovery and their sobriety, how much more impactful and helpful that can be on the community that we're trying to represent.
No, I very much agree, and that's like, I work as a youth peer support, so my job is having lived experience. So instead of saying trauma, we say lived experience, which I definitely really like that term, talking again about perspective. So my job basically is I get to meet with people from 11 to 26, and I share my lived experience with them and how, you know, it doesn't have to be the end and what has helped me, but more importantly, I help them advocate for themselves. So teaching them to advocate for them rather than, you know, a treatment plan being given to them and strictly following that. Like, they're very involved in it, and I think that is something that should be encouraged more in like addiction counseling and mental health counseling is, you know, being driven by them. So
for sure. No, I definitely believe that. You said you're 22, right?
Yeah, 22.
Being 22 years old and being in the actual mental health field, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a blessing.
There's not enough people, I think, in your age group that have woken up or have, you know, made those decisions to want to get better. So the fact that you have, and now you can advocate for people right in your age range, or maybe a little younger, a little older, that, you know, some old guy like me trying to talk to a 20-year-old might be like, yeah, you're just an old guy, you know? So, you know, that dynamic, I think, is really beneficial to what we're trying to do here.
And yeah, we even like, so I work for Network 180, and we do have, even for adults, we have peer support for them, and even for parents experiencing like their kids going through stuff, and it's definitely a beautiful program, and you know, we're state certified, so it's all over Michigan, and a lot of states are also doing it as well, and I definitely think it should be more encouraged. So
yeah, so walk me through an average day as a mental health.
Yeah, so I have to be very careful of like,
you don't have to give any specific names or anything, but if you can, you know, give just a vague idea.
Yeah, I would say most of the time I get to go, you know, I do mainly home or community visits, and it's very driven by them. So I don't like interrogate them to tell me about their issues, but we just kind of build a relationship. Yeah.
Just listen more than.
Yeah, and I'll share my story sometimes, and they teach you very well, like how to share your story in a beneficial way that might not be triggering too, which I think is very important. What you share in your story, strategic sharing. So I get to go hang out with them. Like some days we'll just hang out and maybe we don't talk too much, but other days it gets a little heavier, and certain things, you know, I'm a mandated reporter, but if they tell me things, I can encourage them to talk to their therapist like with me. So it's not just me like doing it to them, like they get to be involved in the process sometimes, which is very cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very like encouraging of getting them to that point where they, you know, ask for help or, you know, what they need. So
now you personally, I know you mentioned you go to AA. You're friends with a lot of friends that I go to AA, and it's awesome to have the support from them as well. Are there any other avenues that you went through to kind of help with your sobriety and your recovery?
I personally didn't like experience like rehab or anything. A lot of it I did do on my own. I do like listen to podcasts, for example. Actually, a few months ago I was listening, I can't remember the girl's name, but she's on Spotify. I was listening to her. But no, not really. I think AA has been like the biggest support for me, even if I'm not always there for alcohol.
Right.
And I'm there a lot of the times for addiction. But I just think hearing people's stories and knowing how much I feel alone, I'm not alone. I think that's like the biggest saving grace for me. So
I definitely agree. AA is definitely it's very beneficial for anyone who can understand what's going on and relate it to their personal needs and what they're going through personally. I mean, I've been sober from alcohol for 4 years, and I recently just started going to AA, and now I don't like to miss it. I don't like to have to skip it. I don't like to be late.
The community is that's like, I think the most drawing part is the community. I mean, when I miss meetings, people notice
Right.
and they will text me. And I think that's one reason, like even when I've fallen off, why I always want to come back.
Yeah,
So
you don't have to be afraid to
come
reach out and
back.
say, hey,
No,
man, I
you
fucked
really
up.
don't. And even if you are afraid, once you share that, like no one ever is like, oh, you're an idiot, man. They're very like, keep coming back.
No, they'll sit there and help you, you know, get to the bottom of what triggered you to make that slip, and you know, and encourage you to do better. They're not gonna, you know, cut your hand off or tell you can't come back until you can, you know, pass a breathalyzer or anything like that. They're just there because, you know, like I said before, anyone at AA, everybody at AA has been through in one way or another in some kind of scenario or situation what it is that we're going through. So the ones that actually are recovered and have that willingness to serve the community by giving back in the way that maybe we are here or they do there, that's huge. And if we didn't have that kind of community, I think there would be a lot more issues and a lot more chaos going on the overdose end and the jail end of things, you know. So we can't save everybody, but
yeah, I think too, like the stigma around like addiction and whether alcoholism or drugs, I think that's something that holds people back a lot, and all different things. So stigma and
the shame,
persecution, shame, like, and AA, I think it's a very safe place. And
I agree.
Being able to find people where you can feel safe sharing things like that is, whether it's, you know, mental health or assault or addiction, I think it's very important.
Because they all relate to the same thing, which is the same thing AA is truly about, which is the addiction, you know. So even though it's centered around alcoholism, we're addicted to the alcohol. It's a disease, and you know, so that kind of resonates with, you know, the whole entirety of you know, addiction in itself, whether it be on pills or drugs or alcohol or, you know.
No, there's I would say too, like, you definitely know it's a disease when you have that voice in the back of your head. You know, even sometimes when you're sober. Yeah, he's always in the back of your head, and I feel like people always assume it's so easy to stop, but the amount of the times that, like, I've sat there and prayed, crying, begging God to, like, remove this life from me and for it to stop, and, you know, like, I have to fight it on my own as well. I mean, not my own, but make that step.
Right.
But I definitely wouldn't put myself into those situations. There's been times where I was using and I really didn't want to be. So,
and what we don't realize is, you know, praying to God, since you brought it up, or whatever higher power that it is that you believe in those times of absolute just, you know, gutter, you know, in the gutter, the whole time he is helping you. The tools are there. He's doing everything he needs to, but like we keep saying, until we actually want to and we start making the moves and making the decisions and cutting off the ties and making the behavioral changes in our own lives, like, God can't help you any more than the next guy, you know? So he's not going to come down and work you like a puppet and make you go through the motions. You have to be willing to discipline yourself. Yeah.
I think too, one thing, like, if you're watching this podcast and you're questioning, like, if you should get sober, if this is for you, like, once that seed is planted, you're always going to be thinking about it. So just remember that, like, don't try and bury the seed, nourish it.
Right. No, that's pretty profound. Well, Naomi, we're already running out of time. It seems like we've been talking for 5 minutes, girl.
I know.
You did really good.
I can talk all day.
Have you ever done a podcast?
No, this is my first one ever, so I was a little nervous.
You did great.
Thank you.
You did great. Just seeing you grow as a person since I've met you. I think we met right before or right after COVID, which is, you know,
I was like 16 pretty much when I met you. So.
And you came to me because I was a safe place to get piercings done and stuff like that. And I'm just really happy to see how you've grown into a nice young woman and how you're, you know, trying to make sure that you stay on that path and do what's expected and needed. And still having that in your heart to be able to understand where your parents came from and the ones that were pushing you without being helpful about it, and how you still were able to overcome that. If you could say one I know you just already said some really dope stuff, but if there was one thing that you could say to leave with our listeners today, whether it's about sexual assault or addiction or even mental health, what do you think that would be?
don't be afraid to reach out. I think mental health and assault and addiction, just all in general, that little voice in your head that says, don't reach out, isolate, don't listen to that voice. That voice is an idiot. Reach out and find that community, find those resources, and advocate for yourself. So I think that's what I would tell everybody.
I agree.
Tell my former self.
And like I always tell people as well, you know, it's okay to go to church and to reach out to family and friends, but don't be surprised if a lot of those people, you know, push you farther away rather than bring you closer, out of their own fear or out of their own just insecurities, because they're maybe not familiar with those kind of circumstances. I always say you'll find a lot more help from a stranger that's going through exactly what you're going through. The first person that you talk to might not be the one that's going to help you, but the fifth might not either. It's all about finding the comfort and being able to advocate for yourself. And once we can find that little voice that's telling us all the wrong things and turn the switch so it's telling us the right things, and before we know it, it's speaking for us, and it's speaking power, and it's speaking, you know, recovery, and we embrace that. I feel like that's really when you start to win, and things get a lot easier. And the harder you try and the more effort and discipline that you put in and you work towards, the greater the reward in all aspects, for sure.
100%. I agree with that.
So, well, that being said, thanks for coming on my podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude.
Super proud of you.
It was good to see you again, too.
Hopefully we'll run into you.
You're going to tap me
soon. Get some tattoos on you, and maybe we'll even have you on the show, you know, as you're a little farther into your job here.
Yeah, I would definitely love to come back and keep working on my journey, you know, like one day at a time.
That's right.
Just for today.
Hours.
So
that's right.
Focus on it a little bit more, and hopefully someday I can sponsor somebody, which would be cool.
That'd be awesome. Until then, well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching and supporting the Tattered Addicts. This is only our 5th episode, and it seems like we've been doing this forever. The amount of love that we've gotten and support from the community, local and farther out, has really been huge for us. So we're really grateful for that. If someone's watching this and they have a story they want to tell that they think can relate and help other people, don't be afraid to shoot us a message. We have a Facebook page. It's called the Tattered Addicts Recovery Podcast. Shoot us a message. We'll get back with you. We'll get you on our schedule. I mean, right now we're booking about 2 months out already with guests that are eager to get on the show. Great. A lot of them come in here and you know, have never done a podcast, haven't even done public speaking. One hadn't been out of her home in 4 years. So it's more than just sitting here and talking about yourself, or you know, some might say that you're trying to feel like you're better than other people. That's not what this is about. This is about people with scars trying to prevent other people from getting scars as big as ours. So with that being said, we appreciate you guys tuning in and watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.